So I'm Tim Cockerill. I'm the head of the Educational Psychology Service here in the council. Really lucky this afternoon to have Gareth from Minerva School joining us, who's going to bring this to life in terms of what this actually looks like at school in practice. I've just got 5 minutes. I'm going to set the kind of scene and some of the context around the wider vision in Somerset. So when we think about trauma-informed practice and education, what the evidence suggests and what we're working towards is really thinking about how we instill a relational approach in our schools. And it's all about relationships from that point of view. So the evidence suggests that relationships in terms of between children and also children and adults are fundamental to progress, to achievement, but also to social and emotional well-being as well. So when we think about what a relational approach means, we often think about the importance of a relational policy. That might be part of a behaviour policy, that might be about a series of policies that the school has, and how their relational approaches are reflected in that policy at that policy level. The other kind of fundamental element to it is, what does the practice look like? So what is the day-to-day interactions between staff, between children and staff and children? That means that we can describe that as a relational approach, because we know that has really good outcomes. It's quite hard to define. I think there's misunderstandings about this. I'm not going to read through all of these on the slide, but just to pick out a couple of really key ones. And one of the reasons that it's so powerful is because it's preventative and proactive. So for schools who have a very significant trauma-informed relational approach, what we see is a shift away from managing behaviour and responses to behaviour after it's happened to an understanding that actually the way we engage and interact with children using relational approaches is actually preventing and proactive from a behaviour and emotional point of view. One of the things that we really know in this area that it's about education, education for staff in terms of knowledge base. Some of our teachers have really good knowledge and understanding about trauma, the impact of that. Others have less understanding because it's not part of teacher training. So what we start with is that discussion of what do all staff need to have in terms of baseline knowledge and skills and understanding about trauma, how it presents in young people, how it impacts the children's learning, their memory, their ability to sit still in class, the behaviour that might really challenge. It's those elements that we think, how can an understanding of trauma really help put into context where that behaviour comes from. So part of that is really understanding behaviour. I think we've heard this week that kind of all behaviour is communication. It's something we say a lot in terms of that, unpicking that underlying reason so we can put the right support in place around that. So some really key kind of approaches, and we've talked a bit today about the significance of some of these changes as well in terms of the culture. Sometimes this is a really big culture change for a school in terms of moving towards a more relational approach. So what we've been focused on is developing certain schools who have been further along this journey in terms of developing that relational approach, and then moving towards how those schools as Pathfinder schools can then support other schools as well. So I'm going to skip over, because of time, a couple of bits, but I do just want to flag the evidence base for this. One of the things that's really helpful in terms of the evidence base, it defines what we mean by relationships, because one of the big misunderstandings of a relational approach is that it's interpreted that it just means that teachers are friendly with the children. And actually, what's really helpful about the evidence base, it actually defines what a relationship means in this context, and what the evidence suggests is around actually that's about valuing that young person, it's about respecting them, it's about listening, it's about empathy, it's about care, it's about positive regard. It's still about being the adult, it's still about having clear boundaries, it's still about all of those things that we would expect to see, but a fundamental shift of that, describing that relationship, is between around that value in that child as they are, not just in terms of their educational potential, but as a human being, as a person, and really understanding why it is they're presenting like they are. So there is more on the slides here. I'm sure people might want to look through at some point, but I'm just going to skip through to this one. And this just describes really what we're doing about this about this locally in Somerset. There's an email there at the bottom, so anyone who wants to get in touch, please just use that email address. If any questions about the presentation or about the training that we're offering or about our relational path finder program, just drop us a line on that, and somebody will get back to you. But essentially, we've got a level 2 training offer that's for whole schools. I've had 40 schools trained or on the verge of being trained in the last few months by our staff. That's whole school training. And then we've got a series of level 3 training offers, which are for certain staff in certain schools who come out onto that training, and they learn across a wide range of topics in relation to trauma-informed practice. The last thing just to mention is around our relational policy and practice Pathfinder program. So that's about our vision in developing hubs of really excellent practice in schools around the county, and then the plan to use those schools to support other schools who are looking to go further on this journey as well. So we've got at the moment half-termly networks of any school who's interested in joining those conversations. So drop us a line on that email address, and we can get those dates and invites out to anyone who wants to join that.